So I got in my car, I drove out to Unity Village. I waltzed in there with all the pomposity of a car salesman and said, I'm here to become a Unity minister. Give me a Bible, give me my territory, I'm ready to go. And they told me I wasn't quite what they were looking for. And I thought, what? Have you talked to the spirit upstairs? I'm sent here by God. And they said, nope, I'm afraid not. So I went away, and I applied again the next year. And they turned me down again. They said, we just don't think that you're ministerial material. And back then, I didn't dress in fancy clothes. My hair was down to my shoulders. I was kind of a leftover hippie, finding my own way in the world. So I came to work here as secretary. I came to volunteer first. They said I should really have more experience in Unity Church. I came here to volunteer, and the very first job they gave me was shoveling wood chips. They unloaded them in the driveway on the west side, and I had to shovel them up and over the fence to get into the playground. Grueling work, grueling work. Volunteer work, grueling. And I remember getting up the next morning and I could hardly move. It's like every muscle in my body had been stretched so far. But there was still half a pile of wood chips there. So I came back and worked a little bit slower, but finally got them over the fence. But that to me was, yes, this is paying your dues. You work when it's not easy. You work when it doesn't feel good. You work when it hurts for God, because that's what you're going to run into if you become a minister. I then became secretary here at the church, and the minister, who happened to be here at the time, was president of the Association of Unity Churches. So I applied to Unity a third time. He pulled some strings, and I got in. After school, I went to work for Myrtle Fillmore Center, which was in Prairie Village, for a woman named Rosemary Fillmore Ray, granddaughter of the founders. And we had a beautiful relationship. We're still strong friends today. That church began to grow and become very prosperous, while this church began to dwindle a bit. It had 8 different ministers in 10 years, and every time a minister leaves the church, there are problems. Some people get hurt, some people get angry, some people just go away. And so the attendance continued to reduce until there were about 100 people. The IRS had put a lien on the building. On Sunday mornings, many of you may remember this, when you left church, there was a table in the lobby with bills on it, and you're expected to pick up one of the church's bills and pay it. Meanwhile, on the other side of town in Prairie Village, we were looking for a place to move to because we were kind of overflowing at the seams. And so I remember calling up the president of this board of directors and say, I got a lot of people, and I've got a lot of money coming in. Why don't we merge the 2 churches? She called me back in 2 hours and said, okay, we'll move forward and see how this looks. So on January 1st, 1991, we had a wedding of the 2 congregations. And we all gathered together here. The room was full. We had the Unity Temple congregation, the Myrtle Fillmore congregation, and we actually said vows to each other. Said vows that we accept each other unconditionally. Had vows that we would not separate within the church and cause the congregation to be divided. And the biggest one is that we would accept everybody exactly the way they are, with no expectations for them to change or to conform to any sort of commitments or doctrines or creeds, that everybody would be encouraged to find their path and to increase their sense of well-being. And it worked. The church took off, and that was 22 years ago, and it has been an incredible center of well-being ever since then. Everybody gathered here this morning is an owner in this establishment. You have a ownership in the building, you have responsibilities, and you have power to help direct where this church is going. We're all in this together. And as I said earlier, because I'm up here doesn't mean that I'm different than you. I'm exactly the same as you, enjoying a very enriching and fulfilling life. Whenever I hear the song Amazing Grace, and many of you can identify with this, it touches me in such a way because there was a time when I was totally lost and I was found. There was a time when I was totally blind to the glory of life, blind to the fulfillment of life, blind to the presence and power of this all-pervasive God, and I was able to see. And occasionally I wander into the darkness of the valleys, but with the help of unity, I always see that light at the end of the valley, and I move towards it. I don't get stuck anymore. So this morning, I thank you all for being attentive listeners. It does me a great deal of satisfaction to share my story with you and to encourage you, if you're going through similar things in your life, to come see me and sit down just like we have today. We're now going to move into meditation with the song, Amazing Grace.